Okay, so welcome back to once again another episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. Man, I really need some new video ideas. But I mean, you guys seem to have been loving this series recently. A video that I posted not too long ago actually hit over 100,000 likes, which is insane, and I want to say a massive thank you to you guys, because that's honestly, I would never even expected that. So today I'm gonna set a goal a little bit lower, one that I know that we for sure could pass, and that is 20,000 likes. That would be pretty insane if we could hit that within 24 hours. With the release of Season 9, that comes many more myth ideas that I'm sure a lot of you guys have came up with. So if you do have a myth you want me to test in the next or future episodes, go down in the comments below and drop a comment of a unique myth for a pretty good chance to have it featured. And while you're down there, give me your opinion on Season 9. I personally like it, but the game's getting kinda too stale. They need to change something up somehow, but I think it's pretty good so far. Anyways guys, without further ado, let's begin today's episode. Jumping straight into the first myth is, what happens when a supply drop lands in the middle of a slipstream? Now of course this has been a really highly requested myth, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have probably seen the outcome of this myth already from other channels since I'm a little bit late on it. But I mean, every single day I see comments asking for this exact same thing, so I may as well just show you guys. Now a good friend of mine, No More, he actually sent me in this clip the first day Season 9 came out, and I just never got around to putting it into a Mythbusters episode, so I may as well use the clip that he sent me, which was actually from Daquan's stream. Daquan was just playing regular duos when he stumbled upon a supply drop literally landing in the middle of the slipstream that was produced by the drone, and when he went to loot it, you can't really loot it because you're just flying around consistently. Luckily though, he sent me a clip from another YouTuber named Typical Koala, and in this clip it shows that you basically can loot this by getting on a hoverboard and then basically just riding straight up to the supply drop, and the slipstream doesn't pick you up, which still gives you the option to loot the supply drop even if it's in the middle of it. So I mean, if you ever see a supply drop in the middle of a slipstream, you probably just want to get on a hoverboard. That's your best bet to actually looting the thing. Jumping into the next myth is, do you take fall damage while inside of a cannon? To do this myth, it was actually pretty simple, and you definitely could use a tip like this in a regular game for possibly even end game moments if the zone is in the right place. In game, when I tested this out, I went into creative mode and set up a platform very high to the point where if you were to jump off regularly, you would of course die to fall damage because you can't really survive a drop just like this. I slowly walked to the edge of the platform, then I did one big push with my friend inside of the barrel of the cannon, let go, and he fell down to the ground and took no fall damage at all. He then did basically the exact same thing, and I never took any fall damage either. This could definitely be used in a regular game for maybe if you're in the end zone and somehow a cannon gets up pretty high and you need to drop down, or I don't know, you guys could get creative with this one. This is definitely something I did not know though. Jumping into the next myth is, does a shadow bomb remove a bush that you have equipped? Now this myth has actually been pretty highly requested because in game a lot of people tend to use a bush now, since of course if you do get shot by literally almost anything, the first bullet will basically get rid of all damage that it should have had dealt. So when you do have a shadow bomb, which a lot of people do have at the end game in scrims and even the World Cup, to get around a lot quicker than as if you were to just run and waste mats, if you have a bush on as well, will that bush disappear? Will it go invisible, or will it fully get removed, or just stay right out in the open? In game, when testing this out, I threw on a bush, then I threw down some shadow bombs right afterwards, and to my surprise, the bush actually does not get removed, and you still could basically do everything that you could do in a regular shadow bomb, just the bush kind of follows along with you. The bush does not go invisible for anybody else, so if you do have shadow bombs and you do have a bush, you might not want to waste your shadow bomb because you won't really be invisible unless you really need that double jump boost. Jumping into the next myth is, what happens when you fly a plane into a slipstream? Now I know exactly what you're thinking, Nexiph, planes aren't really in the game anymore, but just keep in mind, if this myth ever does come to help, it's most likely when planes are added back in the game, because knowing Epic, they're gonna add planes back in eventually. When I tested this myth out, I did a glitch to get in creative mode and get back to the spawn island. That way I could basically spawn anything I wanted and be in the regular island at the exact same time. I then placed down a plane and got in the middle of the slipstream, and I was actually pretty surprised to see that the slipstream does pull the plane along with it. But if you were to be AFK going through the slipstream, that won't really work because the plane with the propellers, it will eventually pull you out, maybe on like a hard turn or even on a straightaway, if you do have enough speed. Now on the other hand, if you do cut the engine out while you're in the middle of the slipstream while on the plane, it will actually pull you along even around turns. So if you do want to be in the slipstream while in the plane, definitely cut out the engine, and you'll kind of just go on for a nice little roller coaster ride. Jumping into the next myth, the next myth is what happens when a supply drop lands on top of a flying drone. I want to give a massive shout out to Nicole Lee for actually sending this clip to me on Twitter. In the clip, something that you'll probably never ever see again happen, and that's a supply drop literally landing on one of the rings of the flying drones, or is it even a drone? I don't even know what these flying things are. With the supply drop being on the ring, when you do open it, if you are very unlucky, all of the loot will fall maybe into the slipstream, and if you do go in the slipstream and all of the loot is there, you can't pick it up because you can't really pick up loot while you're flying. The only way to pick up all of the loot is to get on a hoverboard and then ride straight up to it. You'll then have the option to pick up the loot, but of course you'll be standing still and most likely get shot at. Anyways, Nicole, thank you so much for sending in this clip. If you guys do have any clips like this, make sure to email it or send it to me on Twitter. Jumping into the next myth, the next myth is what happens when a supply drop lands in the ocean. Now this myth I have been trying to complete for an extremely long amount of time, and just about every single time I tried to complete this myth, I never am able to do it. I tested this in multiple Team Rumble games, and in Team Rumble, if you don't know already, multiple supply drops spawn in just about each zone, just all around the zone. So you could have maybe like 6 or 7 supply drops spawn at once in just about one square. In game, when I tested this out, most of the zones that I do go to, they are halfway over the ocean, so it's mainly all over land. When I did test this out though, I never was able to get a supply drop to land in the ocean, and that is because it's just not possible. You'll see multiple times in multiple endgame zones, it avoids the water. It always has to spawn over land and a pretty decent amount of space over towards the land. I even went to the extent to build a massive platform over the water, hoping maybe that'll somehow trick the system into thinking the supply drop could land on the platform and then I could break it, have it fall into the water, but that was never the case either. The supply drops are basically not allowed to land in the water. Overall though, I guess this is a good thing, because if a supply drop does land in the ocean, you wouldn't really be able to get it anyways. Jumping into the next myth, the next myth is if you have glider redeploys, can you redeploy while invisible from a shadow bomb? Currently in the World Cup and even just endgame scrims, redeploys seem to be a very valuable item to have, because of course you could rotate without using a lot of materials quickly and pretty easily. That on top of using a shadow bomb, you could definitely move around the map a lot quicker without actually really being seen using materials. So if you do have glider redeploys, can you pull them out while invisible from the shadow bomb? Now of course, when I tested this out, I threw down a shadow bomb at my feet and jumped off a ledge where you could obviously pull out your glider redeploy, and you can't really pull it out no matter what. Also in the bush myth I tested out earlier on today as well, I went into a slipstream while in the invisible form from the shadow bomb, and you are still unable to pull out your glider. You could still kind of glide around like regular, just without the glider, just skydive, and you can't pull it out. It'll just drop you down to the ground just like regular speed. Jumping into the last and final myth, this myth is what happens when a boom bow arrow hits an RPG. Now a very long time ago in a previous episode, I tested to see what happens when 2 rockets collide with each other, and the outcome was pretty surprising because both rockets have hitboxes. They collided in midair and made a pretty cool explosion. Now with the boom bow arrow, I tested out something very similar, because obviously the rocket has its own hitbox, but sadly the boom bow arrow does not. So when my friend shot a rocket towards me and I pulled out my crossbow and tried to shoot it out, it kind of just went straight through it. Nothing really happened, which is kind of a bummer. It would be pretty cool though to be able to snipe some rockets out of the air using the boom bow, because that thing shoots pretty fast and extremely far if you do try. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, make sure to leave a like, and also subscribe if you are new to the channel. Make sure to turn on notifications, because YouTube, they're kind of messing up their stuff and not sending notifications out to most of my subscribers who are active. Also guys, in this Fortnite item shop, use code Nexiph. It would mean a lot if you guys do use that. It helps me out so much, and I just got my code. Not too many people are using it right now, so if you do send me a screenshot, I'll definitely retweet it and reply with many thankful hearts.